What up, everybody? It's your local Ottawa fan. I wanted to obviously make a video on the game against Boston, but it got postponed. So instead, I thought in its absence, I would just make this quick video on my thoughts of the PWHL. Now that the season's in full swing, we've started to see, what the league is shaping up to be. The first thing that I want to touch on is just the overall physicality. I know I touched upon this briefly in my video of the first game of the season for the PWHL Ottawa team, but it's a very physical game, and I really like it. It's a lot of chippy games. We know that there's not going to be fighting. Fighting comes with a game misconduct. It's not just a 5-minute penalty and then that's it. And it makes sense. For one, there's cages. It's kind of hard to punch somebody in the face when they've got a cage protecting said face. I don't think fighting in the PWHL is necessary. I really don't. Especially, I've seen how physical it is. There's still enough bad blood. There's still enough hitting. It's still a very physical game. There's still, scrums after whistles. They play to the whistle and then they play after the whistle. So, for those hockey purists that think that there needs to be fighting in every single level of the sport, you know what? This league is great without fighting, and I really wouldn't want it implemented because it's already a very physical game. It's already a very physical league. It's already a lot of chippy games, so I think that's great as is. Next thing I want to talk about, the jerseys. As you can see, I've gotten myself the Ottawa jersey. I'm an Ottawa fan, so it makes sense. And I know that there were a lot of people when they first saw the jerseys that they weren't fond. And I get it. They don't have names. They don't have logos. And every team, it's basically the same thing. It's their colors and the city name. And if you follow me on Twitter, you would also see that I've said the same thing. But I kind of have a mixed feeling on it because on the one hand, it is kind of lame that they're all the same thing. But it does give it an original six vibe, if that makes sense. It really does feel like all these teams are the original founding teams of the PWHL. And I feel like in 20, 30, 40 years, fans will be pining for these jerseys to be back. It's very likely that these jerseys are going to be for the first season, and that's going to be it for at least a long while. Then we're going to get names, we're going to get logos, we're going to get new jerseys, which means I think these are going to be great collector's items. I think that, if you're a fan of the sport and your team still has jerseys available, like get one ASAP. Even if it's a team that you aren't necessarily going to cheer for, getting a jersey that is very likely going to be a one season only jersey, the inaugural season, that is like in the treasure trove of sports memorabilia collection, that is one of the best things you can have. The inaugural season, one season only jersey, and they aren't like bad, they aren't like one of those jerseys that is trying to do too much. It's very classic. This is something that you see in any league. And I really do think that when this league expands, when there are more teams, these jerseys will be old school, they will be classic, they will be timeless. And I think that's what's key. While right now it's easy to say, I don't really like that all the jerseys are the same. When there's 20 teams and 6 of them bring this jersey back, it's going to feel timeless. So I think right now it's totally fine. I also wanted to talk about my thoughts on the point system, which I love. I really, really, really love that it is just 3 points per game. It's not 2 points, but maybe there's going to be a third point if overtime happens. It's 3 points, and every game will decide how we divide those 3 points. Either one team gets all 3, or we split it 2-1 if a team makes it to overtime. First off, it gives teams a reason to win in regulation. If you need 3 points to make the playoffs, an overtime win will not cut it. You need those 3 points. You need that regulation win. And I really, really like that there's a much bigger incentive to win in regulation, because now it's not just, if we get to a tiebreaker, it comes down to regulation wins. No, there is a point on the line. If you can't win in regulation, you have lost a point, and that will go to the other team. And I love that. Rather than it being like, if I can just force overtime, there's just going to be a bonus magical point and maybe I get 2. No, you will, effectively, if you're trying to win, you've lost a point because you only get 2 out of the 3. And I think that this is going to make teams a lot more aggressive to win in regulation. And speaking of being a lot more aggressive, everybody already is talking about it. I feel like I'm late to the party, but the jailbreak goal is just amazing. The jailbreak goal, not only does it make penalty kills more aggressive, and we're definitely going to see a lot of penalty killers trying to score, we're probably going to see more scores being put on the penalty kill, because if you score, that's it. The penalty kill is over. And I think that's good. I think that, if you're on the power play and you manage to get scored on, you don't deserve that power play. You really don't. Yes, they broke the rule. They committed an infraction. But if it's a minor infraction for just 2 minutes and you get scored on, your penalty should be done. The power play should be over. But at the same time, if you start putting your scores on the penalty kill, this is going to lead into a lot of 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, and 5-on-3s. You spring a teammate forward and they miss. And now your opponents are coming back the other way on a power play, and you've got somebody behind. You're screwed. You're going to have a 5-on-3 play. And I think that's going to make the game a lot more exciting on both ends. And the final thing I wanted to touch on, and I wrote them down here just so that I really have the all the names. That I know we don't have names, but there was floating around 6 copyrighted names, and some of them I like, some of them I don't, and I just want to quickly go over each one by one. Toronto Torch I like. I like the name Toronto Torch. I think it's nice. I think it flows. I did not like that every single team was like a singular. We didn't have any team that had a plurality. Torch makes sense. I like Toronto Torch. I think the Toronto Torches actually doesn't sound as good as just the Toronto Torch. I think that, there are other names that could be better, but I think this is fine. If they use Toronto Torch, I think that just about everybody would be satisfied with that. Montreal Echo, on the other hand, I don't like it. I really don't. And I saw a lot of people defending it. It's just me personally. If you like these names, that's great. And if you dislike the names that I like, it's fine. It's all opinion based. But I don't know. Montreal Echo feels Bush League. It doesn't feel like the top of the top. It doesn't feel like, it definitely does not feel Original Six to me. It doesn't have anything timeless. It feels like it was dated 5 years ago. That's just how I feel about it. But I feel like Montreal Echo is just trying too hard a little bit. And I really hope that they go with another name, because I'm not a fan. I'm also, part of me isn't a fan and part of me gets it for the Minnesota Superior. Like, there's one part of me that thinks, that's a cool name. But then there's another part of me that's like, imagining them scoring, superior goal. Sounds weird. It sounds weird. And I think Superior's goal also doesn't roll off the tongue either. I'm someone where it's like, if you can't find anything better, it's fine. But I would workshop it. I think that there are definitely better names for Minnesota. And I've already seen some. I like the name Valkyries. I think that if they go with the name Valkyries, that would be a much better name. The Boston Wicked, I don't like. I just don't like it. I don't know why. It doesn't feel like a hockey team. And that's weird to say. Like, what do I mean by that? I don't know. That's just how I feel. Boston Wicked feels like it's in like a league that you've never heard of. And, the Professional Women's Hockey League, it's supposed to be the top league for women's hockey. I think that we do need some names that are plural. I'm very partial to the Boston Bears. I think that's perfect. It's a layup. You've already got your other Boston hockey team. They aren't named the Bears, but they are closely associated with Bears. And Bears is an instantly classic sports name. There are so many teams across so many leagues that are called Bears or Cubs or something similar. I know these are mostly Chicago teams, but Boston also has Bears. Boston Bears sounds nice and it sounds classic. In 100 years from now, Boston Bears will make sense as a name because bears are an apex predator. They're scary, they're threatening, like it's a bear. What more do you need to say? New York Sound, I actually love. No notes. Do it. Just straight up, I actually like it. And I know that I, kind of ragged on the Echo and the Wicked, but New York Sound sounds, pun intended, good to me. I think it's a lot more fitting to New York. I think it, represents the city in a good way, in a way that makes you think New York. And finally, my hometown team, the team that I root for, the Ottawa Alert. Ottawa Alerts should be the name. It's clear why the Ottawa Alert was chosen as the team that they would copyright. I know this isn't the official team name yet, but for those of you that don't know, Ottawa had a team back in the early 20th century called the Ottawa Alerts, and they were a women's hockey team, and they were arguably one of the first dynasties of women hockey before women's hockey kind of went extinct for a little while, due to various factors, a lot of including, the war and, of course, sexism, women being told that they shouldn't play hockey, that hockey was a man's sport. But when hockey first became popular, that wasn't necessarily the case. And one of the first dynasties in Ottawa was the Ottawa Alerts. And if that sounds familiar, that's because one of the first dynasties, both teams played in the 1920s. Both of them were arguably the best team of the 1920s, the Ottawa Alerts and the Ottawa Senators. And then when the Sens came back, when Ottawa got a hockey team again, they chose the name the Senators to honor the team that came before them, the dynasty that came before them. I think the Ottawa Alerts, S, plural, does the same thing. And I think it's very holistic. The fact that the major women's and major men's hockey team in Ottawa both are their own thing and their own identity, but also have a namesake of the team that came before them, their predecessors who set the standard and who set the standard extremely high. If you go to a Sens game, even though they haven't won a cup as their modern franchise, you look up to the rafters, you will see 11 Stanley Cup banners. 11. That's how good that team was back in the early 20th century. That is the level that the Ottawa Alerts played. That should be the expectation. I think that this would be a great standard to set. And another name I've seen floating around, I know it's not been official in any capacity, it's not copyrighted, but I've seen a lot of people saying that they love the name the Ottawa Owls because a group of owls is called a parliament. And while that's a good point, and the Ottawa Owls sounds really, really good, in French the word's not owls, it's couchette. And it is not good. Chouette. Les Chouettes d'Ottawa. We've got to remember that Ottawa is a bilingual city. It will be a bilingual team. Les Alertes d'Ottawa. Great name. No notes. Les Chouettes d'Ottawa. That's just a name that's the French translation of what would clearly be the real name. If you name them the Ottawa Owls, it's just because you want the alliteration. Oh, a group of owls is called a parliament. Well, in French, it's chouette. It's not a parlement. So I feel like that alienates a large part of the fan base. We've got to remember that while they are PWHL Ottawa, they represent the National Capital Region. They represent the Ottawa Gatineau region. It represents both. There is no better way to alienate the French Canadian fan base than by having a name that does not work in French. That's a perfect way to just lose all those fan bases, all those fans to Montreal. every single one will become a Montreal fan because at least they'll have a team who cares about them in their language. But Les Alertes d'Ottawa, that is a name that says, hey, look, we are honoring the team of old, and whether you say it in English or French, we know what you mean. Alert, alert. It's the same thing. Senators, sénateur. It's the same thing. If somebody is talking about the Sens in French, even if you don't speak French, you'll know when they say les sénateurs d'Ottawa, you'll probably figure out who they're talking about. In the same way, if they say les alertes d'Ottawa, you'll know exactly who they're talking about. So I really think they should add the S, and I do not think they should change from alert. I don't think they should change to owls. Alert is a perfect name. So those are kind of my thoughts on just things that are happening before the league, my thoughts on the names of the different teams. And yeah, I really look forward to seeing the rest of the season. I'm looking forward to seeing what the playoffs are going to look like. We're assuming it's going to be 4 teams. I think it's going to be 4 teams. We don't know how many games it's going to be, but I'm really excited to see how the rest of the season plays out. I'm super excited for Game 2 against Toronto, and I'll definitely be reacting to that. So look forward to it. Go Ottawa, go! I'll have to fix that up then.